What's good, lads and ladies and non-binary folk? Welcome to Shared Screens. This is our weekly recap and review of The Last of Us from HBO. Joining me today, we have Brett Jamerson. Brett, what did you think of the episode? How you doing this Friday? Weird, right?
I know, man. I loved it. I thought some of the changes worked for the show. They it didn't compromise what made the original story great. I hate Kathleen. I hated her.
Fuck Kathleen.
And yeah, some of the action set pieces were really great. Yeah, so all around great episode. It's not my favorite, but it's up there. It was awesome.
Yeah, I do feel like this was an action-packed episode, really kind of riding off of what episode 4 had set up, right? That was last week 4. Also joining us today, we have Liaren Jass. Liaren, how are you doing?
Honestly, terrible. I'm so... Listen, I know I've been making jokes about how this show makes me cry, and I'm just waiting for the day that it causes an anxiety attack. We reached it. We reached the episode. Yeah. And what sucks is I know this one isn't even going to be the worst one. I know there's worse things coming.
That is the arc. What is it? Occam's razor that we're walking right now with this show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also joining us, we have Jordan. Jordan, how are you doing this fine evening?
Fuck, man. Like every time this part, I really thought I was going to be ready. Feels like I played the game multiple times. No fucking shit, man.
It really just punches you right in the fucking chest every time it happens, doesn't it?
Every time. And every time for some reason, it goes down a little bit differently in my head, and just, it's so bad.
It's always worse than you remember somehow. Like, it's always worse. All right, so this has been our spoiler-free impressions of The Last of Us episode. This is 6?
5.
Episode 5. Pardon me. I'm just lost in the show. I love it so much. If you have watched the show, welcome to the Treehouse of Trust. If you haven't, please exit so you don't spoil it. Unless you don't care if it's spoiled, then stay around. We don't care. Kind of any initial thoughts before we jump into the plot recap? I personally really felt like the reasoning that they gave Henry for being a rat was worth it, and it makes the situation at the end make a lot more sense with that context and kind of what he had to do to protect Henry and how much that already weighed on him with the way he talked about himself. Did any of you guys have any, or just want to, any initial thoughts?
No.
It's Liaren just dead eyes the camera. I just looked at her and I just took my breath away. Like, what the? She's going through it.
I agree. I think that kind of showcases like Craig Mazin's interweaving all the different storylines and threads. So I thought it was a great way to tie everything a little tighter than it was in the game.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be great. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I did like how it made almost the director's cut this episode specifically of this situation into something more than, and in the director's commentary, they talked about having Sam be deaf and how Neil was like, I'm mad I didn't think of that. It is a very interesting kind of dynamic and also brings American Sign Language into the light. And I really enjoyed how Sam was teaching everybody how to sign. Go ahead, Liaren.
I don't think The Quiet Place is the masterpiece everybody else thinks it is, but I do appreciate that now television networks understand that putting deaf characters in isn't a bad thing and isn't going to make people not watch your content, because I think making him deaf added a huge thing to something towards the end of the episode. Him being deaf, it suddenly hit me that he has no idea what's going on because nobody can stop to sign to him right now. And how for an adult that would be fucking scary, but for an 8-year-old, also the kid who played Henry, fantastic job.
Yeah, when Emmy season comes around,
he did a really good job.
Yeah. And just the way...
I mean, the guy who played Sam did great, too.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, Sam is the younger one, so he's the one that was signing the whole time. I did really think...
Sorry.
I thought he did really well, but I
Yeah.
also thought Henry did really well learning ASL. I keep saying that acronym wrong. I apologize.
American Sign Language.
Yeah, how he learned ASL to like better portray this character and to actually speak with his like co-star. Amazing work. With that, any final kind of thoughts before we hop into the plot summary? Nope. All right.
Red.
So we open on the fall of the Kansas City QZ, and it is brutal as fuck. It's the fall of Fedra. Sam and Henry are trying to escape. You see Fedra officers getting strung up. They're being killed. They're being beaten. There's one getting pulled behind a truck with knives in him. It's a brutal scene. And there's a real sense of panic in the air with Henry and Sam and kind of escaping. And it's really kind of like a harrowing moment of this older brother taking care of his younger brother situation, and really sets these two characters up and kind of their dynamic really well right off the hit. Kathleen then starts to interrogate some of the, what did they call them? Not the conspirators.
Collaborators.
Collaborators. That's what it was. She's interrogating them. Really just like kind of poking at them, and we really don't get like a lot about why the Fedra at Kansas City was so bad, like in this first part. Like she kind of talks about starving and this, that, and the other, and is really just kind of being petty about the whole situation and really just rubbing their faces in it, it feels like. She then tells them she's going to kill him unless they give up Henry. She goes to leave, and they're going to kill him, and some guy shouts it out, and she still ends up killing him, kind of setting her up for being like a very violent leader. And also why everybody should hate Kathleen, never aspire to be Kathleen. So Henry and
Kathleen.
Sam plus old white doctor, that's the guy that gets killed last episode, right? They are in the hideout that we saw previous episode, and it's looks way different. It's obviously when they first get there, they have 11 days of food. And go ahead. Liaren?
I'm going to add some levity to this really quick. When he walked on screen, then the doctor walked on screen, my dad goes, "Oh, they didn't kill him." And me and my mom were like,
Oh,
It's a
no.
flash.
Oh,
And
honey.
he was like, "Oh, damn it." I was like, "Yeah, they did it." Like, Dad.
Okay, I have a funny story to tell. So, when I booted up my HBO app at 8 p.m. Central Time to watch this episode, I guess like the app will like cache data based on what you're doing on it last time. So I had literally had watched episode 4, and I guess I rewound to like a part of that to like just before like maybe we were on the pod or something. So I rewound, and it was when Kathleen was talking to the doctor about like how he delivered her and stuff like that. I was like, oh, okay, flashback, interesting. And then I was like 2 minutes into it, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is like a long
This is a really long flashback that's not cutting anything.
Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm like an idiot. And then I played 5, and then it's like a flashback again.
Yeah,
And so I was like,
you're
no.
still taken back to him
Yeah.
getting killed. That's hilarious. I do kind of like to see how this hunt for Henry like wasn't an like overnight thing. Like that has been her goal since they overtook, is like, you know, we find out later it's because he had to give up the brother, and so it is her number one priority, more than overtaking Fedra, is killing Henry for what he had done, and just kind of gives a little bit more backstory there. So Henry,
Can I bring something up?
yeah,
Because this was like part of why, like, on one hand, I really sympathize with the Kathleen character, especially when you find out that like Henry like rats out her brother to Fedra and stuff like that. But there's moments where like the way they described it in like the after show like segment was that like it was her moral code. But I felt like it was too comical how strict she was with it.
Yeah.
In terms of like killing the collaborators and everything, a lot of other stuff she did. So it was like, I just feel so conflicted about her as a character, because like on one hand I sympathize with her, but then like she's like cartoonishly evil sometimes, and I'm like, yeah. So sorry, that was just the team.
Well, they also talk about it being something like an action made out of love, like my brother's more important than yours, I think was the quote that they used. And I think it really kind of we had talked about this last week, I believe, about how love can make you do bad things, and I feel like this is like kind of showcasing some of that kind of. What were you gonna say, Jordan?
I can't take Kathleen seriously. Her voice is too squeaky.
Yeah. I,
It's like Mickey Mouse ordering you to kill someone. She's like, ha, go, give me their heads. Like, I can't.
Bro, did you not watch Mickey Mouse beat up the Jonas Brothers, dude? Come on.
Oh, I did.
my
I have
God.
He's tough. He's tough. I'm curious why, like, the brother was the leader of this rebellion. Yeah. And then he dies, and they were like automatically the sister.
yeah, that
Unless,
is,
like, unless she was like previously part of that.
like
I
it's a
guess.
dynasty.
yeah, like this is a
He
kingdom
was like
now.
he was like number 2 maybe beforehand, because everyone's like, oh, your brother was so awesome.
I get that vibe. I
You're
get the
like,
vibe that, like, you know.
I mean,
You know what it reminded me of?
what's that?
Saw Gerrera and his sister in the Clone Wars.
Kind of. Except for like, it sounds like her brother was way better than Saw. Saw is kind of like unhinged.
Well, before Saw's sister, yeah, but like before when his sister's
Okay.
the one in charge.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, like that whole like what you watch him go through in
I
the
gotcha.
animated was very similar to me, where like his sister was supposed to be the leader, he was second in command, but like got radicalized when his sister died, and it just kind of became, I'm gonna kill the Empire.
That makes a lot
however
more
I
sense
can.
now. I get where you're coming from with that. I was reading it the opposite way, and it makes way more sense your way. So we cut to 10 days later. The hideout has been colored from the crayons that Henry gave Sam. Looks great. He tells them that that the doctor's not coming back. I'm assuming they ate that can because like fucking Sam was getting pissed at Henry for not letting him eat it. He's like, come on, bro. Like, just, I'm starving. He kept hitting his stomach.
I was trying to like think about like how much they were eating a day, because like I was like, because how much is a soup can, like 300 400 calories or something like that.
I mean,
so if you're
like,
yeah.
I feel like us nowadays would be hard pressed to eat 1 can a day for our caloric intake, where I feel like they may be a little bit more.
2000? Isn't 2000 like the standard?
Daily
for-
recommended. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're
But you
eating
have to imagine
300, 400 a
they're
day,
used
like,
to eating less than normal.
Yeah. I mean,
So basically what it gets into is like, yeah, they're realistically eating less than normal, and 2000 is the recommended, but 2000 is the recommended for like all of us right now who live relatively cushy civilian lives. If you're somebody living in a war zone, your caloric intake should be higher, because your body's going through more stress, your adrenaline's pumping more, so it takes more out of you. It's why soldiers will come back half their weight, and it's not that the army isn't feeding them, it's just like their caloric intake goes up just by what they're doing.
you come back looking
and it's
jacked
shitty.
as fuck too. Let me tell you what.
Well, yeah. And that's where I don't know, like Kathleen just like
Yeah, she's the fucking worst.
it just made me so mad when she was in with, I hate calling them collaborators and I hate calling them rats, because like Kathleen says what they betrayed their neighbors to Fedra for was medicine and food.
Yeah.
Of course they betray. I don't mean to, like, I said before we got on this, I'm a very sensitive person. I don't think I could ever like kill somebody in cold blood. I just think I'm too sensitive for that. But like, I would consider selling out neighbors to a fascist government if it was between that and getting, like, there was an old woman in there, like getting a family member medication. If that was the choice, like, yeah. We don't live, Kathleen keeps operating off of this justice system from before the world ended. And it's just not, you can't operate with a system from a world that doesn't exist anymore. Your world you live in is very gray now. Like, and he told her to forgive him. Like, the last thing your brother asked you to do was forgive him. And I'm not saying that's easy. I get being angry and wanting to go after the person who like did it, but he asked you to forgive him because your brother understood why he did it. He understood that Henry wasn't like, oh yeah, Fedra's right and I'm all for Fedra. They were promising him life-saving medicine for the only family member he had left. It's not like Bill and Frank, where Frank got cancer, but they were at the end of their lives. He's 8. He was born in the apocalypse. He was born deaf, and now he has leukemia, and he is 8. Like, yeah, I would have a really hard time not valuing that over an adult.
Yeah, but I mean that's
Because
why
there's
you're a
just
good
this-
guy and she's a bad guy. Like that's
Okay.
like that is like what it is. Like she is like a villain in this show, and I think like for all of the aforementioned reasons you just named, like yeah, any reasonable person is going to take the side that you just took. But
Yeah.
she's not reasonable, and it seemed like she really has like the Saw Gerrera mentality and doesn't give a fuck. What were we gonna say, Brett?
Oh yeah, like because her whole reasoning for like why what she did, like why that whole faction did what they did was because of how terrible and oppressive and everything in between that the federal government was doing. Now, granted, I'm not discounting that. You know, most of it, all of it was true, whatever. But then when she's no better than them,
Yeah,
it's hard. Yeah, it's just hard to like buy into, like, try to view that as an empathetic character a little bit.
yeah.
When you are trying to overthrow a fascist government with their tactics, you're not overthrowing a fascist government. You're just changing who's in power.
Yeah. I feel like we've seen,
Like-
like in today's world, we've seen that happen over and over again. Not to dwindle on this too much. Don't mean to make it that much of a Debbie Downer, but it is the aspects of the character after all. So, Henry hugs Sam, paints his face. They leave and they stumble across Joel in the shootout. And Henry sees how deadly Joel is, and he's like, "All right, this guy isn't going to survive here long. I'm his ticket out, and he's mine." So they follow him to the tower, and it kind of cuts to where the episode ended last night, and he makes it very clear right off the bat. He's like, "Hey, I'm not going to hurt you. Please don't hurt me." And Joel's not really selling it, and Ellie has the really funny, like, brought like a lot of levity to the situation of like he just has an asshole voice. Like I really like that. That was
He
like
does mean it. He's not gonna like kill you. I swear he means it. He's just like this.
Yeah, and it felt like it would be something in the games where, like, I don't know. And I really enjoy kind of the show's pacing of them getting along and how, like, they said it in the director's commentary about how, like, Joel is at that point and he doesn't know how he got to the point of being in Henry's shoes, taking care of Ellie, which I really appreciated. So they defuse the situation. He feeds them. Joel gives Sam more food because he can see that he's starving, and it's like really kind of like this olive branch that Joel doesn't mean him any harm. He's gonna like honor his word, but like, what the fuck are you doing here? And so they kind of go through it, and Henry writes out the plan on the map. And I feel like everybody, as soon as they heard the word tunnel, was like, "Excuse me, sir, but we saw last week, you motherfucker." And, you know, he tries to reassure everybody, saying that Fedra drove unsuccessfully at first. In trying to reassure him, Fedra drove all of the infected underground, but then like 3 years ago, they killed all of them. And it's not really like you believe him at all. And is there anything I'm missing? Yeah, he kind of tells him why he was a rat. Like, is this where he tells him the
No.
leukemia thing? He just
doesn't
tells
tell
him.
him
No,
that
that's
till
when
they're-
they've already gone into the bank.
Yeah.
Okay,
And down into the tunnels.
okay, because that's when they're in Ish's place, right? I'm getting that mixed
Yeah,
up.
in the
Yes.
in like the school, yeah, the playroom.
So this is like the
Yeah.
first conversation where he kind of explains that the person that he gave up essentially is what he gets to. It was like the best person ever and very kind and loving and kind of everything that a man should like kind of strive to be. And you don't get why at first. And then, you know, they get down into the subway. Henry just won't shut up, and I feel like everybody who's played the first game and knows what the tunnels are like in any section is siding with Joel. They're just like, "Yo, son, like 20 octaves lower. What's up, Baron?"
What I enjoyed was they walk into the tunnel, nothing immediately attacks them, and Henry goes, "It was a good plan." And Joel's like, "We've been in here for literally 2 seconds. Like, can you chill?" Like, we are in phase 1 of the plan. Stop
They might have done this because they do like a little cut of them just like hallway. But I'd be like throwing rocks like every like 20 steps just to like
In case
test it
something's
out.
yeah. I also
Yeah.
feel like Joel's the type that's like, no, like we just gotta walk slow and be quiet and listen. Where I definitely would fall more on your side of the plan, but who knows how many shells they have. They don't want a horde coming after them, I guess. So they make it, like you said, just kind of shows them walking, and they make it to a doorway with a bunch of paintings on it. And for all of us who have played the game, we know this as Ish's hideout in the sewers. Really cool how they integrated this into the show. And I really, really liked how they kind of paid their dues to certain things in the game with this episode, and this seems specifically with the Savage Starlight comic, which is a collectible and actually like very fun to get in the game because it's kind of mirroring what is happening in the game with your two main protagonists. And then it also shows a drawing that a character in the game had made of this man named Ishmael, and his co-leader of this underground network. And when asked, what happened to him, he's like, somebody didn't obey the rules, which is more or less what it happens in the game. I'm really glad that this got like integrated into the show. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I was really worried about this specifically, and I was really happy with the way that it kind of played out. Jordan, did you like have anything specific about this scene that popped out to you, whether it be the Savage Starlight or Ellie trying to learn ASL for the first time?
I liked how they kind of encompassed it all in one shot, rather than it, because obviously you really can't do the thing you do in the game where each part of the tunnel adds more to the story. You can't do that slow drip of environmental storytelling with people looking at that stuff. So they just kind of gave you like the basics of there was a community here, and I also like the way Joel explained it. He goes, I heard of this stuff. People went underground and just started their own little communities and stuff, and that I like the one-to-one recreation of the drawing. What I would love for someday is if they ever do like a season where it's more like a Last of Us factions, like they're just telling other stories of different parts of the Last of Us world, but it's not like the Ellie and Joel story. I want to see Ish's story like it, kind of the way we got like a
Dude,
the episode with Bill and
100%.
Frank.
Yeah.
I want to see one with Ish. Like I was kind of hoping maybe they do that as like a small cold open with this episode, the way they did with like the Doctor in the second episode.
I'm right
But
there
yeah, I
with you.
think that if they ever do like a Last of Us faction show, that is the one story I really, really want to see adapted.
Yeah, because I feel like those of us who have played the game like kind of know the story, but we don't know.
We don't know
Oh.
the finer details.
Yeah, and to really be able to just like have an hour just exploring what that was like would have been just excellent content. Give me one moment. Did you have anything that jumped out at you for this episode or for this scene, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like seeing the picture of Ish, and then seeing the Savage Starlight comics, very Easter egg heavy episode, and yeah, again, the team did a great job of integrating those into the story in a natural way that didn't feel too video gamey or feel out of place. I mean, you see Joel look at the drawing. Ellie's obviously into the comics, so she pulls out her copy. And I just can't wait for season 2 when they get into like the superhero cards and stuff like that. Because I was like, when I played Last of Us Part 2, I was like, I want a game of that like superhero universe. Because
Yeah, it was
like it was so cool, man. Yeah,
Dr. Uckman.
yeah.
yeah.
The one of the best like inserting yourself into your IP
Yeah.
ever.
All writers should be allowed to insert themselves into their IP.
Yeah, shamelessly as well. Like do what you want. You made the
Yeah.
thing. So Joel apologizes to Henry in these tunnels, kind of saying like, "Hey, I get what you're talking. Like, if it was to protect him, I get it." And Henry kind of like, it's already been said that Joel's not her dad. By both of them at the same time. Very funny moment. And he's like, I know that she might not be your daughter, but I know you were somebody's dad, and that he can kind of see it. And then he gets more into the story of like what he had to do to keep Sam alive. And it was because he had leukemia. And immediately I'm like, how in the fuck is this kid still moving? And it's because he had to give up Kathleen's brother to Fedra in order to get the treatments for Sam. Which really kind of puts it on that like catch-22 decision of like, all right, I get why he made the decision. I get why she's mad. Do I side with what she's doing? No, but it's also like kind of enough motivation for you to understand why she's so hell-bent, because she's just this one-note character up until this moment. I kind of feel like she's just Henry, and then we get this, and it's like, okay, I get it, kind of. I don't like it, but I get it. I really enjoyed that Henry like really takes it out on himself and is like reveling in like depression and self-loathing, and like Joel doesn't necessarily do a whole lot, but I feel like with his previous statements and just kind of the way that he acts with him, he's like, no, I do the same thing. And I kind of liked that humanization of Joel, and kind of Joel realizing that like if he was put in the situation, he would have done it as well. What's up, Brett?
Yeah, it sprinkles the seeds for what's to come later, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like this, like just a quick aside, I feel like the show, more than anything, is really laying on the groundwork for the twist at the end. And I think that is maybe my favorite part of the adaptation, is just how much more it's kind of there the entire time. It's not like something that's going to be veiled in mystery and we have idiots online debating whether or not it went the way that it did. Like, we are going to have
This episode especially kind of sets up the moral question of this story.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I really feel like it's the first time that like we're directly posed with that question. Or just like with that situation on what it actually looks like when love goes too far. Because I feel like we saw when love goes too far in a romantic way in episode 3, and now we see it in a very catastrophic way. So we get the leukemia thing. We cut to Kathleen in the bedroom. Tommy, I forget his name in the show.
Harry.
Very handsome, tactical man, Harry. Finds her because he was talking to her mom, and she's like, have you ever gone back to where you grew up? And he's like, fuck no, that's out like hundreds of miles away and it's not worth the trip. I love that kind of like, nah, bitch, like, come on.
Ohio.
Is that where he's from? Or Ohio doesn't exist, bro. Like, I don't like, why do people keep bringing up Ohio? Jesus Christ. So they can't find Henry, blah 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 blah. She's pissed about it, blah blah. They leave. Same bullshit, different day.
Can I say something?
Yeah, what's up?
So they can't find Henry, and like when they're looking out the window, there's like 100 of them walking. I'm like, how did he not check that one building right there?
Yeah. Well,
10 days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like they found him the next day. So if they would have stayed there any longer, they probably would have gotten found out. But there was a line that I didn't quite catch about a Fedra agent saying something about that place, like maybe they knew that it was a hideout, but like nobody else in the surrounding area did or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so Dr. Edelstein knew someone in Fedra because he was also a collaborator / was working for them as a doctor, and one of those guys said, I can't remember what the reason was, why it was, but he knew that was like isolated, nobody knew about that attic, all that stuff. So.
I think it was more like the attic was the hidden part, because even if people were in that building, I think just nobody like looked up and checked in the
I don't
attic.
mean to be a downer, but it's very Holocaust.
Oh yeah.
Yes. 100. Like, I was very much getting
Like,
Anne Frank vibes from this shit.
Yeah.
Like,
and I mean, this isn't the first time that they've done it. We get that shot of the death pit on the way to Bill and Frank's, which is also very similar to what they were doing to the people they made, the Nazis did to the people that made March. So I don't think it's the first one we've gotten, but yeah, it's very much. And like, yeah, it's easy to kind of be like, how did you guys not see them? But also, people are dumb as fuck, and these aren't real soldiers.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of this episode made me be like, oh, this is a bunch of people playing pretend at a militia. Like, they don't know what they're doing. They don't understand what they're doing. They have Harry with his long beard, and Harry's got military experience. I don't
Harry.
care what anybody says to me.
No, they've said
Harry?
that he was a veteran, that he was a soft,
Harry with a P.
he was a
Push
soft
Harry.
guy.
Like the platypus.
Like the platypus. Okay, so Perry. Sorry, I thought you guys
Yeah, I
were
thought
saying
you said Harry too.
Oh.
So Perry, Perry was
Is Harry.
definitely
Like my
the way he
favorite
holds his
mechanic in
gun
video
is the
games.
big tell. The way he holds his gun is the big tell, but it's definitely like they have some veterans that join them for whatever reason, and they've taught like every other like revolution thing you've seen. You know, you have a couple of people that have actual training, and then they're teaching everybody around them. But like that doesn't mean those people are
Proficient in any
Soldiers,
way.
yeah.
Yeah,
We're
they
not-
got the crash
we're not
course.
dealing with the Green Berets down here
Yeah.
in Kansas
Well,
City. You know what I mean?
We're not even
Yeah.
dealing with Boy Scouts, bro. Like we're dealing with who's left. Like that's really.
yeah.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Brett? Sorry.
Oh, they have probably never really had to fight infected because of what Fedra did. So
Yo,
Yeah,
big
we're
facts.
at-
Actually, jumping to the end, to the end of the scene, just so we can get there really quick. The sniper scene plays out. I really like that they changed it to night because it made the sniper not shooting so well make a lot more sense than in the game where this scene takes place in the day. Although I will say that motherfucker got me more than once on my first playthrough, and I was really getting pissed because he
Gonna
takes
say-
you down in 2 shots.
I'm very surprised by the, because I know we're going up to game spoilers. I'm surprised they didn't mention how canonically Joel dies 20, 30, 40 times sometimes during this part, and just he keeps coming back. You know, it was a real trooper, that Joel.
I will say, going back to this section when I played the remake, I knew like every avenue still to this day because of how many times I died in that fucking block, dude. I will say it's a lot easier in the remake because I went through that thing one shot, got it on the first try, and I felt like a god.
You know what I really liked about this scene?
What's up?
They gave Joel that moment where he could have left them all behind.
Oh yeah,
He could have, as he's going up to the house, there is a moment where he could have gone down the path and said, fuck all of you, and cross the bridge and follow the plan and go find Tommy. And like you get that really big moment of Joel is starting to kind of fight for something bigger than himself a little bit, and his little like found family, even if he doesn't want to accept them as his family. Which I just thought that was a really good it was a really good example of like show and not tell.
yeah. Well, and I really I feel like we missed this section, but Ellie had already invited them to go to Wyoming with them at this point, correct? By the time we got here, it's when they get out of the sewer, I believe. And at first Joel's like, no. And I think it just kind of plays into like he didn't want to take them at first. He does then extend the invitation again, really like hammering in that point that Learen made. But we get the scene. Go ahead.
Because we're about to get to the payoff, I'm also going to bring this up too. I am mad at them for doing it. Genius writing, spending so much time on Sam and Ellie bonded.
Yeah.
It made everything so much heavier.
Well,
Genius writing making them bond like that. Like the line where Henry is like, I haven't heard Sam laugh in years, like really got me.
I'm surprised one of the changes they decided to make was to make Henry 8, or not Henry, Sam 8, because in the game he's 12, so there's only a 2-year gap between him and Ellie.
People
where,
hate 12-year-old boys. People love little ones.
Yeah.
Like young boys
That's
are
fair.
cute and sweet. 12-year-old boys are fucking annoying.
there was also like a slant romantic slight to the way it was portrayed in the
Yeah,
game.
they do
and I
that thing where
didn't-
they try to give Sam like a little crush on her, but like even ignoring that, I just felt like the fact that they were closer in age made that connection make. I'm surprised it happened as naturally as it did, despite
Granted,
the age gap in
yeah.
the
Because
show.
she's a superhero to him. Like we'll
Yeah.
get into it, but like that whole scene in the motel, like he's just in awe of her in that way that like little kids can be in awe of like teenagers, where they think they're these. Like think about how you
Yeah.
you thought about teenagers when you were a kid. Like you thought they were adults and like all that kind of
Dude,
stuff.
Or, like,
especially
you-
because of TV. Like teenagers were like when I was growing up, teenagers and TV shows were just always by themselves at the mall, going around house to house. I'm like, you have so much freedom at six. Like, no, you fucking
Yeah.
don't, man.
And so like he's looking at Joel and Ellie, and they're like they are superheroes to him. Like
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, they are like almost max level. Like in their skill tree, they have got all of the shit down
Oh,
pat.
however, if I were Sam, I would be a little afraid of Joel.
Oh, everybody,
just
yeah,
because
everybody's
he's
a
an
little bit
aggressive looking guy.
Yeah.
So we get the scene where it's an old guy. Joel finally makes it to the house, goes upstairs, clears the rooms, and it's an old dude. And he's like, "Look, man, just don't say shit. Give me your rifle. Wait 2 hours and then do whatever." And the guy starts to turn. He's like, "Don't fucking do it." And like, it was in that moment we all realized like Joel had given this dude that he knows is like not wanting him to leave like a way out. He has him dead to rights. This guy knows that he's going to die if he moves on him, and he still does it, which I find like one of the saddest moments when it's like a character that is not known for showing this amount of kindness just offers this old dude like, you can live out the rest of your life, just shut the fuck, and he doesn't take it.
I
And Anthony.
think this moment.
Yeah, god damn it, Anthony.
Also, this is a me thing. When they revealed his name was Anthony, I was like, that is Father Time. His name is not Anthony. His name is like Herbert.
Yeah,
Like,
it is
why
Herbert.
did you name him Anthony?
What were you gonna say, Jordan?
I was gonna say that like I feel like Sam and Henry reminded Joel of probably a lesson he's maybe not wanting to admit, but realistically has learned throughout his time. Like he's like, oh, I've been on both sides of it. At the end of the day, 90% of the people in this world just want to survive. And they have to come off aggressive because if they don't, you might, and then they die. And we saw that with how Sam and Henry were introduced in it. And I think that Joel's looking at this dude being like, listen, man, I get it. I get why you're shooting at strangers when they come by. Not here to, I'm just letting you know, I don't want to hurt you. Do the same. We both just want to survive in this world, but this dude can't take that risk.
I thought that Joel like knew he was a lookout for Kathleen, because that's what he ends up being, is a lookout for Kathleen, because he's in direct contact with her, right? And so like,
Why the fuck did you make the old man your sniper?
well, I mean,
Was
it's
that
like in
all
a
you
part
had?
that's in the part of
Maybe-
town
maybe
that they
he was
didn't think he'd be
around.
in. Like that's on the
Maybe.
outside. They're not supposed to be able to get
that's all
outside.
right.
For all you know, this dude was like the best sniper back in Nam.
I mean,
Even if he was the best sniper back in Nam, when you get older, just like physically, no matter who you were, your eyesight gets worse, especially at night. Like, that's not a joke. Like, older people legitimately cannot see as well at night. I don't mean people in their 50s. I mean people like Anthony, who are like 70-something years old.
I just
like,
it made sense to me because it was so far out from the hot zone. They thought that they were still in the interior, and like I'm sure all of like their good forces were like on the highways. Like
I'm
Henry
just
had
saying I
explained.
understand why Kathleen's brother was in charge of the rebellion and not Kathleen.
Yeah. But I did miss the line where Perry said, "Your brother didn't change anything. You did," which I thought was a very interesting, because I thought he was getting sick of
True.
her.
But he has a point where it's like, I don't know, Fedra didn't fall under her brother. It did fall under Kathleen.
Yeah.
Like, you
No,
can't-
no. Fedra fell, but the fascist control did not fall. Kathleen is a fascist. She doesn't want to admit that she is a fascist, but she is a fascist. His brother was trying.
What does that have to do with anything?
Yeah,
I'm
we're not saying that she's
Fe-
not, yeah.
Fedra was still around.
But I'm saying nothing changed.
Yeah, we're not.
That doesn't matter. That's not the point I'm
Yeah,
making.
that's
now.
not.
No, but you just said Kathleen. When Perry was like, Michael didn't change anything, you did. Fedra, like, and you're like, yeah, well, Fedra fell. But she didn't change anything. Like, that's the whole fucking point, is that Michael didn't want to do this. This isn't what he wanted, because he knew this isn't changed.
I didn't take Perry's line like that. I took
Yeah.
Perry's line as like, hey, you were able to make Fedra fall. Your brother wasn't. Like the things
You
that
and I are
happened.
saying literally the exact same thing.
All right.
The way I
No.
the way I interpreted it was like he is trying to talk her up and saying whatever she wants to hear, especially.
I know. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying I think he's wrong.
Yeah.
All right.
At
Well, let's
some-
keep
at, like,
trucking.
at some level, he's just yeah.
All right. So Kathleen comes. She starts talking shit towards. Oh no! Actually, before that, we get the first instance of Joel being fucking Chris Kyle sniper, taking down people. He jams the gun. They're chasing down Ellie with the run truck. I love that the run on the bump on the front scraper thing makes an appearance from the game, even though it's on the wrong truck. It should be on. It doesn't matter. But he with that last shot, he sinks it, kills the woman driving, and it flies into this house. And you just kind of forget about it for a second. Just don't worry about it. Leave it alone. Then everybody comes down. Sam, Henry, and Ellie are pinned behind the truck, and Joel has a couple more shots left at most, and he's waiting for the perfect time. She's spewing. Henry's like, I'll sacrifice myself, brother. You gotta run. Take him, Ellie. And he goes out. Kathleen's about to, blap blap 5,000 on Henry when, lo and behold, the truck just falls right into a sinkhole, and that's a scary sinkhole.
The second the sinkhole started, I was like, anything any of you want doesn't matter anymore. All of you need to back up now, because sinkholes grow really fast.
Well, and
like once the car started tipping, I was like, you all have to move. You all have to move.
I don't get why Perry and Kathleen were just cool being around there when they saw the other sinkhole writhing. Like, they know how many motherfuckers be down there. Like, you really ain't gonna say, why didn't you run, you vengeful bitch?
Because this apocalypse happened in 2003. You see, if it happened in 2013, like in the game, they would have seen the classic movie, This Is the End. You see how fast those sinkholes can open, and all the celebrities fell through it.
I mean this in the nicest way, but there were multiple massive sinkholes that destroyed places that were in the news before the apocalypse hit. People should know sinkholes spread fast. Like that is
but
just
they
a
were on
factual
dial-up.
if you
Like, they were too
know.
busy loading the one porn image they could get a day. They weren't trying to fucking look up.
Oh, it's like Jordan looking at porn on his PSP.
Hey, we all had to do what we had to do.
I don't remember what podcast we talk about that in, but go listen to our other podcast.
It was the one titled "Your Grandma Does What." It's a Shared Screens podcast from about 2 weeks
Stupendous.
ago.
Yup.
Go check that shit out. So then Bloater and everything comes running out. The commotion, Perry starts blapping at the Bloater, and the Bloater's like, look, motherfucker, you picked the wrong gunfight. And he runs
Love
up
this
to him.
part.
Yeah, and he does the death animation. He rips his fucking head off. It's great. He tells Kathleen, go hide in the basement. You know that bitch ain't listening to shit. And then we kind of play like Ring Around the Rosies with Ellie and this fucking baby walker for a minute. All the while, Joel just sinking headshots like he's 360 no-scoping in Modern Warfare 2 in 2011. Just fucking
The dream team.
Oh, there is just a
Yo.
12-year-old saying slurs in that man's ear as he is just fucking killing it.
Yo,
at COD
dude, just
Zombies.
hard R gamer
And,
words
like-
all over in that headset as he's sinking these motherfuckers.
So, when Ellie's goal became get to this old like brown van, I went, beautiful. It's the portal scene from Endgame.
Oh my god. I
See,
thought that
my
was a Ford
thing was more
Excursion.
like-
Didn't think it
My
was a
thing was
van.
more is like, if that's the only way in, that's the only way out, Ellie. So really think about this before you make this choice.
I mean, it wasn't the only way out, luckily. I think there was people getting killed by the door when she was walking up to it, but then they were already dead when she had to get out. It
You
doesn't
assume
matter.
maybe it's locked, but from the inside you can unlock it.
Yeah, so she's going to start this truck, and then the fucking Megan doll comes crawling in.
I'm glad you said it.
It just starts doing the dances over the seats. And I will say, this child actor
Why was she
needs
doing
an
that?
award, because you don't see child clickers in the game, but I feel that's what like a child click, because they just throw themselves, and where a kid's like just a fucking toy.
Gymnast.
Yeah.
Like she's doing fucking gymnast. She like dives through and does a backflip. I was like,
Leon,
a
and if you-
parkour clicker.
you'll see it. Your nieces will hit that age in a few years where like every girl between like 5 and 7, they're
Jordan,
just like,
Jordan,
look,
are
I do
you about to
gymnastics.
mansplain being a young girl
I-
to the only girl in shared screens?
I don't know when the last time you
Wow.
were around one was, man. I don't know. And
The only female in this group, and you're like, Leanne, young girls, like they're. I
making
know.
a joke.
I took gymnastics.
You
Then
really
you
brought
get it.
piss to this shit fight.
Then you
Jordan.
get it. Okay. Imagine.
Not full of fungus.
Okay.
My issue isn't that she does it. It's that why is the fungus like this is the way we should travel?
it's
I
in
have
the
the same
subconscious.
question.
That's the thing. It's still in the subconscious.
Well, that's the thing. Is like the other thing that I was crying laughing at that it's not funny. I am crying because I'm sad and also just like a bad person, and so this was funny. There's one nameless like from whatever Kathleen's faction would be. One nameless one of them gets tackled. And the fucking zombie is making the biggest arcs with her arm to hit her, but is going so fast. It looks like somebody doing a backstroke. It looks like someone doing a backstroke on land, and I was like, this is objectively hilarious to look
Just
at.
Axl Rose on
I like
guitar,
to think
fucking.
whatever movement quirks you had, the fungus gets.
My fungus would just be running into doorways left and right, bro. I can't make it through a doorway to save my. I just
Like my fungus
clumsy
would
as
still
fuck.
have the bad posture. Dr. House's fungus would still have the limp.
Oh
Like
my-
it takes however you walk and just
Well, I don't-
fungicize.
But this is my other question: is that clearly you don't have to stay in your original state because Grandma, who was fucking wheelchair bound, was running a fucking marathon to get Deidre, was that the neighbor's name?
So in like your brain, you have mechanisms to stop you from hurting yourself. Like realistically, all of our quads, no matter how much we think we use them, have enough strength to snap our femur. But you have those like mental like things in your brain to not let you do that. Like you can bite through your finger like it's a carrot, but your brain won't let you.
I could bite Jordan's finger off, but not my own because your brain like fundamentally
Yeah.
will not like. Even if you sit there and think to yourself for hours, no, I'm gonna bite as hard as I can. It's almost impossible to override. It's crazy.
So I
That's why
took
they
it
call
as
Three Fingers McGee.
I took it as Granny was breaking her hip every time she was chasing down Joel and jumping and shit. But she
Yeah.
had like those mental blocks. That's in my head canon. It just like unlocks the full potential of the person.
Can I say something I think everyone's too afraid to say?
What's up?
Granny was faking it, man.
Yo, big facts. She can't.
Honestly,
she can't eat.
I think she just wanted the attention.
Yeah. Fucking faker. So Ellie saves Sam and Henry. They make it out. Kathleen gets clapped by a like 8-year-old walker.
She gets clapped by
clicker.
the same Megan doll.
Yeah, the Megan doll makes a return and just fucking yeets herself
Who
onto.
also swings her arm like she is pitching for the New York Yankees.
Yo,
Like,
just-
it's just very intense.
Hammer fists all day just to that forehead.
I was gonna say like Elf, like Buddy the Elf with the snowballs.
Just the arm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we make,
Legitimately, my father looked at me and was like, "Do you think they sped that up in CGI, or do you think the child actually did that?" I was like, "I don't know. Like, honestly, I don't have an answer for you."
kids be fucking weird. I wouldn't doubt it if some kid did 50 takes of that fucking arm swing. So now we got to talk about the sadness. We make it to the hotel. Henry and Ellie having a good time reading Savage Starlight. There's some heartfelt moments between Joel and Henry. I meant Sam earlier. It doesn't matter. Henry tells Sam it's time for bed, and Sam is just like the best little boy ever, and just like onto bed, ready for sleep.
Just lays down on the bed that a prostitute absolutely was murdered on like 25 years ago.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Creepiest motel on the planet. I was like, ugh, even in the apocalypse, it's a
not gonna
no-tell
lie.
motel.
I think I'll take a prostitute was killed in this bed over a clicker was created on the bed because
I just
somebody
felt the
got fucking
ghost of a
scratched.
prostitute walk through me.
God.
Like,
Oh, there was a cold chill in the air. Sorry, I'll
Isn't
get
that
back
the
to
plot
this.
to Last Night in Soho?
Hey, I haven't seen that. Shut the
Basically-
fuck up.
Oh, sorry, I'm kidding.
I know
It's
you
more of a
are.
like,
It's fine.
spoiler without context type of thing.
I gotcha. So Ellie tries to keep reading to Sam. Sam stops her, and is this at the point where he's like, "Why ain't you scared of shit, bitch?" And she's
This
like,
is-
I don't look scared." And he's like, "Nah, son." And she's like, "Well, I'm only scared of scorpions." And he's like, "What?" And then she's like, "No, I'm scared all the time." And it's really like, I think they said it in the director's interview or inside the episode, whatever you want to call it, and also Liaren had said that just like how much he looks up to Ellie. And I think you really made it eloquent points about Ellie being a superhero to him. I hadn't kind of put that together in my head, but then also like, once you said that, you start like kind of the gears start moving. And now like that is a really cool thing to have, like the connection, and also like that she is immune. He sees the bite on her and she tries to save him, and we know
Part
she
was a
can't.
little weird to me.
That part was weird. I feel like it was just her
Like-
trying
like,
to comfort the
it's
kid.
kid shit. She's trying to undo. It's absolute kid shit. Where
No,
it's,
that's not what got me. It was more the Christ-like imagery. I don't know. There was like the way she
well,
held her
that's just
ankle.
like
There's really no other
Unfortunately,
way to
how you cut your palm, like that's the unfortunate. Like, I always think in movies that looks ridiculous when you run the knife like that, but that's like also how you cut your palm in a way where you're not gonna like gush a bunch of blood.
Yes, but then it's like, oh, then she's like literally healing
But
him
that's
with her
the
hand.
only way to do it. It's not like she
I-
can be like, let me stick a needle in my arm and a tube, and now we're gonna stick a needle in your
know.
arm, and I'm gonna be a human blood bag.
I get that there's no other way to do it. It was a little weird
It's
being
just
like,
kid shit,
It's one of
bro.
those things where unfortunately you need to get your point across, but there's no like good way, because I've seen other things that do things similar to this where they have the person cut it and then like squeeze their fist so that the blood, there's no good way to do this.
Well, I feel like everybody knew it wasn't going to work. It was just a way for Sam to feel okay in that moment. Like it was a way
I
for
think
like, oh, it'll be okay.
I think
she
even though
thought it might.
she was hoping, I think she hoped it would work, and that it could become, well, I couldn't do some other things, but I can do this.
Mhm.
And that I think deep down the very cynical part of her, and the part of her that grew up in this post-apocalyptic world is probably like, this is just to make this 8-year-old feel better. But I also think there was like a naive hope in her that it would work. But I think we are glossing over the saddest part of this episode, which is when Sam writes out, when you get sick, are you still you inside?
Yeah. That was an addition that like really kind of
he does. I thought he says something similar in the game where he goes, if
He
you're a
a-
monster, are you still you? I thought he says something similar.
he does, but he's a lot more like frustrated in the moment, and it's not taken as like I don't know. It just was a lot more
This
like
is very
somber.
clearly
Yeah.
he knows what's about to happen, and he wants to know if he
Yeah.
can stay him.
Yeah.
Which is very sad because this is a little child that we've just like, he just wants to draw and like.
Yeah. Never
Sorry.
easy. I was watching this with my spouse and her sister and a couple of friends, and 3 of the 5 of us didn't know what was about to happen. And the 3 of us that didn't know, I think were hit really hard, but me and my buddy Austin were both just like sobbing before it even happened. It's an infamous moment for a reason. Anyway, so he asks her to stay awake with him, and she says yes, and then he signs promise.
The other
and
shit that really got me is that's such a little kid thing to do.
yeah.
It's such a little kid thing to be like, can you stay awake with me? Like,
Yeah. And I think it's going to hurt a lot more once we see in episode 7 kind of the flashback to
Yeah.
Ellie and kind of what she had to go through and how similar that situation kind of was to this situation, and just how much this young girl has shouldered and kept so carefree. And I feel like this is going to be the moment that kind of breaks her of that for the first time, at least in the show anyway. So we get the scene of her waking up, and Henry has turned. He starts attacking her. We get the scene just more or less how it plays out in the game, where Henry pulls his gun on Joel not to kill Sam, and then he kills Sam. And in his grief, he kills himself. And it is heart-wrenching. And really, the actors really need to be kind of applauded is the wrong word, but I don't know. The way that they built these characters and then their send-off was beautiful. And I really kind of enjoy, or I guess didn't enjoy is the complete wrong word, but I appreciated that we are able to hang on this moment longer than we were in the game, and kind of you hear Joel's like, oh fuck, and you get to kind of see the direct response Ellie has to it, where like she says her goodbye, she says sorry, and then wants to move on. Like she can't be here anymore. And it really bonds these two, I think, and leaves Joel with some just with some questions he didn't realize about himself, and how much he cares for this young lady, and kind of how much he identifies with Henry when before he would have nothing to do with him. Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to make everybody
I
cry.
also like,
Oh, go ahead.
I like that they, sorry, that they bury him because you have after Kathleen where she says in the beginning, "Don't bury them, burn them. It's quicker."
Yeah.
And like it's just like it was so gut wrenching because like you knew like I don't know if I just missed this when I watched the playthroughs, but I didn't remember this being the end to their story in the game. And like it's just like one of those things where like watching it, like my first thought after he shot his brother, which was absolutely out of just like you've been living in this world for 20 years and like that's your knee-jerk reaction is like to kill the infected, and like my immediate thought afterwards was like just like shoot yourself, like because and not in like a how could you do that way, just in like a it would have been better if Kathleen had shot you last night. Like it's
Yeah. And I think that is the real heartbreak and kind of what pushes him over the edge is everything that he sacrificed and everything that he went through and put Sam through only to have this situation be the outcome and kind of trying to escape fate, but he can't. All right. Well, no real smooth way to transition out of this. Is there anything you guys want to say before we wrap up thoughts on this episode and kind of move on into game spoiler territory?
because I'm gonna hop off. I'm just gonna give us my mother's one-line review of the episode.
Love it. Looking forward to it.
Ooh. The obsession with the cycle of vengeance and revenge is blinding, and it's up to all of us to make sure we don't fall victim to it when we lose someone. Which also made me cry just because my parents don't know how it ends and don't know what happens in part 2. And like it's just ooh, I'm like there's a part of me that's like because both of my parents are very attached to Ellie. And like I feel like it's gonna be like a like, oh no, my sweet child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
How did they react at the end of this episode?
They both kind of knew it was coming. Because we all watched The Walking Dead, we know when there are two people trapped under a car and it looks like all of them are fine. One of them got bitten and is hiding it. It was very sad for them in the way of any time watching an 8-year-old. You know, that's very rough.
Yeah.
And they were very sad to see that Ellie blamed herself. Because, like, none of this is her fault. Nothing that is happening to her is her fault.
No.
Like, you can argue that, like, Joel having a hard life, Joel's been on both sides of things. He's done good and bad things. Like, like the show, there is that for the adult characters that they are morally gray. There are no good and bad people in this world anymore because we don't live in a world, and they don't live in a world where there can be good and bad. When survival is all you have, you can't separate into those two things. But Ellie and the kids in this world like truly did nothing. They didn't ask to be like, I know it's such a joke now where it's like I didn't ask to be born, but like they didn't ask for this. She did not ask to be the only one that's immune. And like you see, she's seeing that like her greatest fear is being alone, and that's the path she's on, is that she will be alone because everybody's gonna get bitten by the infected and die, and she can't. Like, that's a lot of weight for a 14-year-old. Sorry, I don't know why I'm still I
No,
cried.
I don't
for
know
an
why I'm
hour.
laughing. I'm not trying to laugh at you.
Jordan laughs at me when I cry a lot, though. I called him once and he picked up the phone to just me sobbing and he started dying laughing.
Somehow that doesn't surprise me even in the slightest.
And with that,
I was like, "You're okay, right?" She's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Okay, now I'm
I'm like moaning through it. Yeah, I'm fine. It's like Greg Miller on the Portillo episode where you can barely understand what he's saying. Oh God!
I
All
feel
right.
like this is our Greg Miller Portillo episode.
"Oh no."
Jordan, are you gonna get a tattoo of Sam because that's the way it has to be?
I am.
Sorry, that is my favorite thing Nick Scarpino has ever done is messaging Andy, what if you got a Portillo tattoo? Why can't you get it? It's just the way it has to be. All right, I'm gonna go smoke a lot of weed and watch cartoons.
All right.
I'll see you all next week.
Well,
Let us
Lorianne,
know
thank
what
you for joining
cartoon.
us.
Bye.
Now, if you haven't played the game or if you don't want any future spoilers, now is the time to dip out. We are going to get into full spoilers from this point out. So on the next episode, we see that they go to Tommy's house, go to Tommy's ranch. That's what we're getting next episode. I didn't want to like get into the spoilers, but when she said, there was something that she said about everybody leaving and dying, and it really just made me think of the scene that we're about to get next episode when Joel tries to dump Ellie onto Tommy, and it's really going to be like, it makes sense so much more than in the game. Is there anything that you guys specifically are looking out of next episode, getting out of next episode?
What I really like is that there is no dam. Jackson is already established.
Mm-hmm.
If you noticed in the preview, they don't meet at the dam for power. They meet in Jackson. You see the fairy lights. You see the little community they've built. So I think they're like very much setting up the finale with Joel moving Ellie back to Jackson. They're setting up part 2 with that being where that beginning part is going to take place. If we do get maybe more stories of Joel and Ellie in between the 2 games before we get the adaptation of part 2, it's almost like I'm not going to say a backdoor pilot, because obviously Jackson's not going to become its own spin-off. But like it's almost like, oh hey, this is going to be the new base of operations, so like we might as well start showing it off.
Yeah, and I think that they're going to use this as an opportunity to show how viable of an option it is. What were you gonna say, Brett?
Oh, I don't know if we talked about it too much, but just at the end with Ellie either comforting Sam or naively believing that her blood could help cure him in that state, I think is super smart in how it's going to tie into probably telling Joel that or not, or if just, or just to the viewers themselves of like, hey, this whole thing might not even pan out.
Well, I think we got a soundbite about that.
Yeah, because they talked
there's
about
a sound
like in one of the first couple episodes that like this might not even be like a viable thing.
I thought that was referencing like just the whole concept from the outset of this.
Maybe it was then.
Yeah, no, I think that there was like a soundbite in the preview for next episode where Joel says, I assume it's a lot more complicated than that. Now, there's a lot of things that line could be referring to, but I imagined it was Ellie saying, hey, I knew about Sam. I tried to do this. It didn't work. Is this all BS? And Joel being like, well, the science may not necessarily work that literally.
Yeah, yeah. Which I think will be the seed for kind of like the end sacrifice that's kind of needed for this cure to take place. And them talking about trying to escape your destiny really plants some ideas in my head for part 3 and what that's going to entail and kind of the ending of the story. I feel like we all, full spoilers for the series, like we all kind of feel like the ending, if it's going to be the good way, which I don't feel like it will, is Ellie sacrificing herself for the cure, right? In the games anyway, like where we're at now, like that's theoretically the best possible outcome.
I don't necessarily see that as how the story of the games or of the trilogy, I guess, has to end. I just think that there needs to be some sort of recognition, because and I know this is the section we're kind of going into, full spoilers for anything Last of Us that have been released. So it's like part 2 does not ignore Ellie's immunity, but it's not
a big deal
important to the story.
Yeah.
It's very much thrown into the behind or into the background. And which is interesting because that is such a big deal. And so I feel like, it's going to be very hard to do a third part of this trilogy, because it's weird where Ellie's immunity as a plot point is not important to the story of she's the only one, she's not getting bitten left and right, but yet it is the crux of everything that is happening around her. It is the reason that they're doing this. It's the reason that Joel has to make the decision he makes. It's the reason why Abby goes on her mission. Like the reason why Abby's dad was doing what he did when he got killed was because of, so it's still such a crux that I feel like they need to address it more head on in part 3. I don't want to talk about why I don't necessarily think it has to end with her creating a cure or at least giving herself up for one. I'll get more into that, I guess, when we get into the finale of this season.
Okay, I think that's a wise idea because we could just run rampant with speculation because my ideas are flowing on kind of this,
Yeah.
that, and the other. So with next week being Tommy, and the week after being what we think is left behind, like, are we gonna get the cannibals in the same sense? Is that just going to be like a thing that they go into together, or are we still going to have that moment where Ellie then has to take care of Joel?
Well, the
Because
cannibals happen after.
yes, but if you in the game chronologically, it's Tommy tells Joel to go to the University of Colorado is where he last heard that there was fireflies, so they go there. The people had all left. Joel, they get ambushed by the cannibals. Joel gets pushed off of a ledge and gets impaled by a piece of rebar, and that's why he's sick. Ellie takes him to a cabin close by and then goes and finds like antiseptic medication to give to him to make sure that he doesn't go south. And that's where like all the cannibals are at, or in Colorado. From the university, we find out from a tape recorder that they had moved to Utah, to Salt Lake City. Without Colorado, we don't get the drop that we need to go to Utah. So are we, because if next week because 7 is supposed to be a bottle episode, right? So next week we get all of Tommy, and then we get a flashback of Ellie, and then that leaves us with episode 8 to go to Colorado, have Joel get injured, have Ellie protect him, cannibals, go to Salt Lake. That's just a lot for one episode.
I feel like if 7's supposed to be the bottle, the next episode would be Tommy and the university.
I just don't think we're going to get all the way out of Tommy's place before the end of the episode. Like, I feel like getting there, I don't know. I just the timing. I'm sure the timing's going to be perfect, and everything's going to play out because that's how this whole series has been. But just because we know what's happening, it's like how does the puzzle fit together?
Well,
we have our fucking Minority Report board.
Yeah, we know we're gonna get the part where Ellie runs away and Joel and Tommy go and chase after her on the horse.
Yeah, for sure, we're getting that scene.
Assuming that brings us to about halfway through, the other half would then be the university and ends with Joel falling.
So
episode 7 is then left behind. 8 is the escape from the cannibals. 9 is the hospital.
That makes, yeah, I guess I'm just thinking that they're going to spend more time at Tommy's than they probably are. I just viewed Tommy's as like a whole episode when they took 2 for the Pennsylvania section. It doesn't matter. We're getting really into the weeds on it, but just my lizard brain trying to fit all the puzzle pieces together. I am just not looking forward to the twist. The more that they're driving in, like, protect, love is dangerous, love is dangerous. Like, it just is like, oh my God. Y'all are really going to make this knife hurt way worse when you stab it into my back.
Oh, and the discourse that's going to come around it.
I don't think it's going to be nearly as bad. I think we saw the worst of it with the Bill and Frank episode because...
Well, I just mean more the discourse of like that question of did Joel make the right choice? And that's actually discourse I think I'm somewhat excited for because I don't think there is a clear right or wrong answer.
I think there's a definite right or wrong answer. I just think that it's a villainy or it's a wrong answer that everybody understands. And I think that I think people who play games oftentimes are very hard-headed and don't want to change their viewpoints on things. I feel like the broader HBO audience may have an easier time kind of digesting the story that was being told to them because before the review bombing happened, the reviews for the Bill and Frank episode were universally positive and lauded. I think it's going to be another one of those situations where the same people come out and just pile on hate. And then they're quickly...
I hope not.
Yeah, it's going to happen. When you make Papa Pedro look any kind of way but sexy, people are going to come out in droves to be pissed off about it. Papa Pedro.
Although it does look like next week's episode should be around the same length as this one, so roughly an hour. So half hour at Tommy's, half hour for everything else.
Yeah, I could see that working, I suppose.
Or even if they speed up what happens in the university, because like I think one of the things that makes the games so much longer than the story that they're telling. And this is I remember saying this on a kind of funny Zoom call after the second one, where I know a lot of people have issues with the pacing of the second game, but I think and I agree, I think the pacing is weird, but I can't think of like a single moment for the story I would take out. I just feel more it's like it's in between the story beats that you would need to lessen. Kind of what they're doing here. And the game is like, between Henry and between getting to the dam, it is here's a section where people are the villains, and now here's a section where the infected are the villains, and now here's a section where one of them kind of crosses over. It's like you kind of get this pattern, and then you get a story beat. I think if you don't do every enemy encounter in the college, you can kind of get that finished within about 15 minutes.
Now that you say that, that does make a lot more sense to kind of have that be the button cap.
I do know there's a couple of infected at the university. Take them out or get rid of them very fast. Do the discovery of no one's here. They went to Salt Lake City. Oh shit, who are these people coming out? Do a giant action set piece, have Joel fall, and then Joel fall. That's a fun
Now
combo.
that you say that, the majority of the stuff that happens in the quarantine zone, or in like the university, I should say, in Colorado, are combat sequences. They do talk about QZs a little bit in that section and kind of like what Joel and Tommy went through, but we've already kind of covered some of that in previous conversations in the show. So now that you've kind of like put it in that context, I do think it may be like the last 15 to 5 minutes of this episode where like it's very like he pointed us to the direction. It was pretty easy getting there. This is the set piece, boom, onto Left Behind, which I feel like Left Behind and the finale are gonna. I feel like the episodes that are great episodes, everybody like last episode, it's like it wasn't very, because we're getting episodes like Sam and Bill. We're getting this week's episode. We're getting. Or not Sam and Bill, Frank and Bill, and then Sam and Henry.
Sam Henry, yeah. I think last week's episode being sandwiched in between the Bill and Frank story and the Sam and Henry story is only going to make last week's episode look weaker as rewatches happen down the road.
100%, because it is really just setting up like the action set pieces for this week's episode and kind of like the accoutrements, if you will, like they're setting the plates for us. I think it's, I don't know. I'm very excited to see how this ranks after the show airs. But any final predictions or thoughts before we wrap this up? Good. Sorry, I waxed poetic about timelines for a little bit longer than I probably should have, but
it's all right.
I know I know we're all thinking it. So anyway, if you enjoyed this week's episode of Shared Screens The Last of Us review, please check out our previous ones if you haven't already. We will be reviewing every week, just like we are this show, The Mandalorian when that drops, continuing the year of Pedro Papi. Really excited for that. Chris over at This Is the Waypoint, right? That's what the show's called. It's not This Is okay. Oh, Chris is the host of that show. He does a fantastic job. Him and Josh and Brett really get into the nitty gritty of Star Wars shit. We also have a Shared Screen podcast that launches every week on Saturdays. You can get all the talk about the fucking granny finger banging herself or whatever the fuck you guys were talking about.
Ant-Man coming up too.
We do have an Ant-Man. When is that? That's the Saturday?
Be next week.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Saturday after Ant-Man launches, we have a spoiler cast going up. Details about the cast. Do we know who's going to be on that, or is that still up in the air?
I would assume you or me, Jordan, Lear.
I actually can't.
Okay.
I most likely won't be on it.
Keep your eye out for who will be on that. We haven't quite figured it out yet. I digest. I hope you all have a good rest of your evening, and fuck the Super Bowl. Yeah. Peace out. Take that shit, Chris.